peaceful and beautiful and physical and angry all at the same time.
Were you idiot, your mind would cave in and your heart would explode within your chest.
This is going to be a shame.
Here we go!
Okay, good listener. Just me and you here today. A couple of quick hitters as we've been talking about for a couple of weeks here. Things are coming fast and furious. It's been hard to talk about some of the things we've wanted to here, with there being a Jays World Series game. Those notes, anytime you bring it up, go out of date really fast. And then we've had some guests here who are more here to talk about their books and things like that than current events. And we're able to get into the current events a little bit, but it's similar. Like, am I going to ask Mark Hebscher too much about the Jays when that show's coming out 3 hours before the next Jays game? So it has left us in a weird spot, but we're battling through it. But there was a couple of things on my mind I thought that I would get off my chest here just quickly. And hopefully most of you will have the chance to take this down before Game 5 goes on Wednesday evening. Series tied up at 2 between the Blue Jays and Dodgers right now. As I mentioned, though, just quickly, last Friday, James Duthie was on the podcast. On Tuesday, Mark Hebscher was on the podcast. And later on this week, you'll hear from Andy Petrillo. They've all got new books out. It all seems to have happened at once. Mark Hebscher pointed out quite correctly. That's because it is almost holiday season time. Sports books make good gifts, and so that's why they all seem to roll out at this time of year. And that's why I guess they're all on the podcast here in a 1 week, 2 week period. So links to all of those, if you want to check them out through our affiliate links, we'd get a little kickback. Are in those show notes for those episodes. So go ahead and check them out. I've read I've read all 3 of them actually, and honestly, thus far I've enjoyed them all. So I know that sounds like blowing a little bit of smoke. I think you know me better than that. I'd come in here and tell you if something stunk. But these were great. So highly recommend. I got one more to go too next week. We'll get into that later, and I got a lot of reading yet to do. So. We'll talk about the baseball second, just in case you have gotten to this late and Game 5 has already gone down and you're not interested in day-old baseball takes. That's totally reasonable. One of the things that got me motivated to come in here today and do this one was a quick look at the standings. And it was actually a tweet I saw about the Montreal Canadiens and how they're tied for first in the league, which I don't love. And as I went to check that out and double check that, I see at the top of the East, there are 3 teams who have 16 points. The Pittsburgh Penguins, Montreal Canadiens, and New Jersey Devils. We're going to talk in just a second about how real those might be. After that, in 4th, there's the Red Wings with 14 points. And then everybody else down to 15 has somewhere between 10 and 12 points. It could not be any more mashed together. And then in 16th, the Islanders are currently in last place, and they have 9. So all of this is as up to date as it can be, in terms of games played and things like that. On Tuesday night, the NHL did this Frozen Frenzy thing. I've got a couple thoughts on that we'll get to as well, where everybody played. So all 32 teams were in action on Tuesday night, and this is where we stand on Wednesday morning as I sit down to talk to you. And I guess there's a few things to draw away from that. Like I said, other than those top 4 teams at 16 points, then the Red Wings at 14 points, everyone else is at 10, 11, or 12 points. And so when we sit here and we talk about, wow, the Rangers have had a shit start, and can you believe how bad Tampa's been, and I don't know, whatever team you might think is pleasantly surprising you. And at the end of the day, everybody's 2 points from each other. Nothing has separated. And this is why we talk about you got to wait a little, it's too early, and all these sorts of things. And Friedman's got his whole thing, which is, a lot of people talk about American Thanksgiving. If you're not in the playoffs at American Thanksgiving, you're probably not going to make it. His is on November 1st, if you are more than 4 points out of the playoffs, almost nobody makes it. Well, we are 3 days from November 1st. And like I said, 12, 12, 12, 12, 11, 11, 11, 11, 11, 11, 11, 11, 10, 10, 10. Nobody's going to be more than 4 points out of the playoffs. I suppose if the bottom couple teams all win their next two and the Islanders don't win anything, maybe they'll be 4 points out in 3 days, but I doubt it. So all that talk we had, and I guess it was mostly about the Atlantic Division, when Rob and I have been discussing, and Lloydie's been in here and sort of had a similar take, that I don't think anybody's going to be running away with the Atlantic Division. I think the days of this big four and then everybody else are sort of behind us now, certainly with Boston having fallen out. It's going to be mucky, and it's still early, but man, is it mucky. And like I said, we've heard some harsh takes, and it's not like they were incorrect when people go, man, the Lightning only have one win. Well, that was, a week ago, and now they're on a 3-game win streak, and they're right there with everybody else. So it's too early to get too worked up and be making these big declarative statements. God, the Rangers are shit. Well, here they are, lumped right in the middle of the pack with everybody else now. So it's been odd, and it's hard to decipher what's real and what isn't. And like I said, the reason that I got digging into this morning was the Canadiens. And there's a tweet that says Canadiens are tied for first. Cole Caulfield is first in the league in goals. And Jakub Dobeš remains undefeated. And I'm like, what is happening in Montreal right now? And I knew they'd been off to a good start. Everybody's been talking about how exciting they are. And so you try and dig into it a little bit and see how real it might be. And so far, the Habs look pretty real. And I don't think they're first place real. I don't think that Cole Caulfield is first in the league in goals real. I do think Dobeš might be real, which is interesting. And for Montreal, probably a good thing. Well, the more good players. Way to go, Matt. That's tremendous insight. But Montembeault has not been good at all this season. And again, it's early. But I've never been as high on him as a lot of other people are. And I'm not a goalie expert and the analytics that go into it. There are people out there last year who say his high danger save percentage was elite, like top 5 in the league. And that is something. After the defense is broken down and the chance is going to come and it's just down to the goalie and not the team in front of them factoring in with how good or bad they are defensively and these sorts of things. When it's just shooter on goalie, he's elite. Well, he hasn't been this year. So if Jakub Dobeš, who you remember last year when he got called up, went on a bit of a run and he was very good and there was talk that maybe he would take the net. And the Habs have another kid coming. His name escapes, something Fowler. In goal, who's also elite upside, like supposed to be very good. And so if Montembeault falters, like I don't believe they want to go to Fowler this year, obviously, but it at least creates some depth. And there's been nothing but talk for as long as anyone can remember that the Habs have to go find a number 2 center. And if all of a sudden Dobeš is real, and people are higher on Montembeault than I am, despite his, brutal numbers so far this year. And you have Fowler. I don't know which one of the 3 it would be, but that's now something you can deal from a position of strength to go get your number 2 center. I don't think it would be enough. Trading goalies for forwards is weird. You need a team in as much need for goaltending help as you are for center depth. So, finding a match is hard, but you can package him with something else, one of the 3, and go get your number 2 center. Because I do tend to, I like this Dobeš guy. I think he might be for real. As far as the Habs being real, I think they're real in the sense that they're going to make the playoffs this year, and I wasn't sold on that coming into the year. I thought they might be a team, like the Sens, who took that step forward, who might take a step back this year. I thought it was more likely the Habs would step back than the Sens, but I thought it was possible for both of them. But what was the one thing I kept saying all year long about the Blue Jays, especially through July and August, when a lot of people were saying, June and July more than July and August, when a lot of people were saying I don't think these Blue Jays are real. It's just a hot streak and teams go on them. You don't have to give those wins back. You've got them in your back pocket. And even if you do cool off, you can kind of coast on these ones you grabbed early. And so the fact that Montreal already has 16 points here in the third week of the season, even if they do cool a little, like was it last year? It was last year where Winnipeg got off to like, I don't have it in front of me, went 14-0-1 or something to start the season, 14-1-1, and then just coasted to a President's Trophy. Now, this Montreal start isn't quite that start, obviously. But Montreal, from here on out, if they're 500, maybe a little bit better the rest of the way, after banking 16 points this early, they will coast into the playoffs. And they have been good early. They have been entertaining early. You've seen, like I said, Caulfield's currently leading the league in goals. I don't think he sustains that. But there's no doubt he's a legit 35, 40 goal guy now. Suzuki has got like an 11-game point streak or something like that. Like I said, now you got this Dobish kid. I don't know. Maybe this Montreal team's going to be better than I thought. Well, certainly they're going to be better than I thought. I don't think their first place is good, but maybe they're top 3 instead of wild card. Demidov has seemed to fit in. They're giving him more looks on the number 1 power play. He still needs somebody else to play with as that number 2 center. Like, that's clearly the gaping hole right now. But man, they've looked pretty good. New Jersey and Pittsburgh also sitting there at 16 points. Who's real, who isn't? Jersey, I think, is for real. Is Luke Hughes now, legit top pair guy? He's being paid like it, but that's a long-term deal. But even if he's not, you've still got Dougie Hamilton right there. I think in the long term, one of those two guys is going to leave, and it's not going to be Luke Hughes. The family seems to be taking over, and I don't think it's more than a calendar year away when Quinn joins them. So I just think there might be a little too much of the same thing between Luke Hughes and Dougie Hamilton. And they're doing all this right now, the Devils, without their number 1 goalie. And Jake Allen's been pretty good, but they haven't had Markstrom. But man, the Devils just look fast. They came in and played Toronto a week or so ago. And as far as speed goes, it was 2 different leagues. And I know Toronto, it's been a long time since Toronto has been the beacon of run and gun, high tempo hockey. It's been years now of get bigger, get slower, get stronger. Funny how that has somehow coincided with get worse. Who would have seen that coming? But Jersey just flies. Jack Hughes healthy again. They could win that division. They might be a first place team. I did have them, strongly back in the playoffs. Like, for sure they were going to make the playoffs, but I assumed Carolina would still win that division, and they may yet, but I think Jersey could be real at a first place clip here early on. Pittsburgh, on the other hand, Malkin is off to an incredible start. Top 10 in the league in points. And yet I sort of feel like we do this a lot. I think people forget that over the last few years, he's done this a couple of times. Where he gets off to these really great starts and then just dies a death somewhere in December. He remembers his age. He remembers the miles on him. He remembers how many injuries he's had. And it sort of falls apart, and he either gets hurt or slows way down. Now, maybe I'm wrong. Crosby's still doing Crosby things at that age. Why can't Malkin? Well, because he's not quite Crosby, and few are. But maybe he's got that one more year in him where he can get 65, 70 points. I'd be surprised. But it's other pieces. Like they've got a couple of rookies, and they bring in Brazo, and he's playing really well. I don't know how sustainable any of this is. The goaltending from Artur Shilovs and Tristan Jarry has been elite. You looking to hang your hat on that for another 4 or 5 months? I'm not so sure. But again, similar to the Montreal thing, now they're in very different places. Montreal's on the come up and Pittsburgh is on the very, very steep plummet down. But you have these points in your back pocket now. And if you were one of those people who thought Pittsburgh might be right there at the end, pushing in a weak Metro for a wild card spot or number 3 in the division, having all these points early makes you go, yeah, maybe. Can't hurt their case. It does ruin all the fun of hurry up and trade Crosby to Colorado, because as long as they're competing, that's not happening. And I don't know how real it's ever been. We've talked about it quite a bit. Everyone has. Would he ever accept a trade? He's always said no, and for some reason, everyone else, us included, has gone, maybe. As long as they're contending and have a shot at a playoff spot, he's not leaving. So if you're looking to follow that story and see that play out, you're looking for Pittsburgh to hit the skids here in a real hurry. But you look around at all these 12-point teams, 10-point teams, just in the Atlantic. Florida's right there. Well, they've been injured, even beyond the injuries we knew coming in with Barkov and Matthew Tkachuk. They continue to get chewed up beyond that. Toronto doesn't look like they're... it's early, but they just barely beat Calgary on Tuesday night. They did not look like a juggernaut in that particular game. Who else? Tampa got off to the brutal start, but they've won 3 in a row. They're right back in it, but in the mud with everybody else here at this point. Ottawa can't get a fucking save. You look at Ottawa's underlying numbers, their possession and their chances and things like that, it all says Ottawa should be fine. Maybe even a little bit better than last year. But nobody's stopping the fucking puck in Ottawa. Tuesday night, they get rolled by the Chicago Blackhawks. Speaking of not juggernauts. Man. That one I didn't have close eyes on. It was during the baseball game. But I saw that Ottawa dropped down to 3-0 or 4-0 right away, and I got a tweet that said fucking Allmark in that game had a .550 save percentage. That ain't going to work. Ottawa showed some fight, to their credit, got it back to 4-3, and then Chicago took it apart in the third period, I guess. Boston, nah. So there's nothing that's all that scary right now. Like Philadelphia is right there on the other side. Columbus is right there on the other side. Like I said, the Islanders are awful, and they're only 1 point behind this group. So, yeah, it's early, but we are starting to see some trends. And it's fair to start asking what's real. But as you can see, all these things that are sort of, I'm not going to say predetermined, but it doesn't take long. It's only like a week or so of people saying, man, the Lightning don't look very good this year. And it sort of gets set in your head that maybe the Lightning won't be very good this year. And then you turn around, and there they are, tied with everybody else. You're like, oh. The Rangers, oh my God, the Rangers went 2 or 3 games without scoring at home, and are they ever going to score another goal? They're terrible. Oh, there they are, tied with my team. So, we are still in that area, that gray area, where you think you can start putting together some stories on what's real and what's not, and yet, when you kind of stare at the standings, it's all still just kind of a mess. I did mention a few minutes ago the Tuesday night ESPN Frozen Frenzy. And maybe we did this last year when they did the Frozen Frenzy. Was last year the first or the second? I don't hate the idea. Everybody plays on the same day, and, you make it this kind of hockey festival thing. Well, first of all, it's hard to judge from here in Canada, because nothing changed for us. There was not one network tying it all together. Your team's playing, the Oilers are on Sportsnet and the Leafs are on one area of TSN. The Sens are on a different region of TSN. It's not like on ESPN where maybe they'll do essentially court surfing, right? Where they can jump between games and run some highlights and keep you up to date on everything. So it's not really for us. It could be, but it would require essentially TSN and Sportsnet to work together. Because the way the regional rights work here is that on a Tuesday, that's not a national night. That's a regional night. And so TSN, no doubt, is going to have the Winnipeg game, the Toronto game, the Ottawa game, and probably the Montreal game. You could have a situation where the Toronto game is on Sportsnet. Their regional games jump back and forth between the two. But as long as the Blue Jays are in the World Series, the Leafs are not on Sportsnet. Or at least not on the main Sportsnet. I've gotten a couple of tweets from people kind of laughing because I always like to throw the elbow at Sens fans who don't know what time their game's going to be on Saturday, and it's going to be on like Sportsnet 5 or something like that. The Leafs Saturday night knocked out of 7 p.m. and down to 5 p.m. and at Sportsnet 1 instead of the main network. How does it feel, Matt? You're one of us. We are all the, secondary figures at this point, as long as the Blue Jays are doing what they're doing and making money for Sportsnet. But you could do this on a Wednesday, which is a national night, and Sportsnet could flex and grab all the Canadian teams. Or my much better idea, and I don't understand why this isn't a thing, other than, I guess, the differences in the way Americans and Canadians maybe want to watch their hockey, is just do it on Saturday. First of all, nobody, leave the World Series out of it, because this wasn't a factor last year. So the Leafs were supposed to play at 6:15 on this thing. They pushed it up to 6, again, because they were going to get pushed by the World Series either way. So fair enough. But they were hosting Calgary. Forget the World Series. How many people in Calgary were excited about a 4:15 p.m. start on Tuesday when you factor in the time zone? That's shit. Nobody wanted that. So you ruffle... There was another 6 p.m. start. I forget whether it was Philly, Carolina, or something like that at 6 p.m. So again, 2 more East Coast teams, but at least you're not dragging a Western team into a 4 p.m. start. But if you move this to Saturday, you can go all afternoon and late into the night, as you hear the fire trucks whipping by behind me, which always happens as I'm trying to record solo. It's very cool. Take your time. Go ahead. I always feel bad that I get kind of snarky about it. They're going to save somebody's home, and yet here I am. You're ruining my podcast. I guess it's fair. They can go save the home. Do it Saturday. First of all, you can now spread games out to every half hour instead of every 15 minutes. And you can start at like 1 p.m. and not be worried about somebody in Calgary having to, try and watch their team at 4:15 p.m. on a weeknight. Roll it out all day. Secondarily, you can now include Canada in this. It's a national day. Sportsnet can flex the Sens in, flex the Jets in, flex whoever they want in, just like they do at night, or just like they do during Hockey Day in Canada. So it's, I don't know, Habs and Jets at 1 p.m., Flames and Oilers at 4 p.m., Leafs and Sens at 7, Canucks and somebody at 10. I don't know. It seems far more sensible to me. And now you can have a channel. Sportsnet 1, Sportsnet 360, one of the secondary channels, where someone is in, the studio. Oh, we're going to jump from these highlights we're looking in live on the Edmonton Oilers Calgary Flames game. Nothing's happening, or it's an intermission. we'll take you to Rangers Devils for a few minutes. Then we'll jump to Stars Avalanche or something like that. And you can kind of tie it together and make it this day that while your team isn't playing, you can be watching that channel and kind of have a full day of hockey if you wanted to do something like that. I don't understand why this has to be on a Tuesday night, and I really don't understand why it has to be in the third week of the season, because it was in October last year as well. When it's all bunched together like this, you don't create momentum, you don't get people talking. It's too small of a window. So I tune in, I watch my team for 2.5 hours, and I'm probably on to something else. On Saturday, you might get me to tune in a couple times. Who's on right now? What's happening here? There's a lot more time where my team isn't involved in the action that I might be willing to rink surf a little. And like I said, you could tie it all in with your one national rights holder on Saturday. But I didn't see anybody north or south of the border talking about this on Tuesday. And again, maybe it's because our shit is a little clouded right now up here in Canada by the World Series. But do it in fucking March. Playoff races and your guys are going for records. Can you believe Connor McDavid is already at 110 points? Or Alex Ovechkin is about to break a goal-scoring record, something like that. By the end of the year, there are real storylines developed. There are playoff races going on. What's gone on in October? Down in the U.S., people are still thinking about college football, and the NFL is going on. Certainly not on Tuesday night. But you could do it on a Saturday in March. You couldn't do it on a Saturday in October because we still got college football, and God knows Gary's afraid of all the other leagues. I don't want to go up against anybody if I don't have to. You could have a Saturday to yourself. There'd be some NBA action, but there always is. In March, storylines are developed, rivalries have developed. The last time these two teams faced each other, there was a Pier 6 brawl. Maybe there's going to be another one here today. All these things would have had time to develop, and you could spread it out over a whole day and get people excited. This just feels like a lot of games for the sake of a lot of games. And the other thing I keep hearing about is, see how easy this is? They should stagger their games every night. That way, we wouldn't have to watch the commercials and intermission. And I swear to God, I don't know how many times I've had to say this on the show, they want you to watch the commercials. It's not that the league doesn't understand that if they start all the games at the same time, there's nothing to flip to during intermission and commercials. They absolutely understand. Those commercials that bug you and me are paying the bills for them. I see so many snarky tweets at the league going, why don't you understand? That's my new snarky voice. It's probably not going to last. I didn't like it. Why don't you get that there's nothing for me to watch at intermittent? They want you to watch exactly what they're forcing you to watch. They know maybe it's time for you to figure it out. You don't have to like it, but don't pretend that this is some decades-old oversight by the league that they haven't figured out yet. We are all nothing but dumbass automatons to these companies that want to fill your gaping maw with as much of their shit as they can and get as much of your money as they can. And you and me are expected to sit there and like it. Stop pretending the league doesn't know what it's doing. Okay. It's early in the day. I haven't even had a beer. I didn't expect to be that fired up about that, but it really bugs me. The league wants you to watch the ads. I don't like them either. But it's not... Gary's not reading the @NHL Twitter mentions going, oh man, Joe 7548369 has got a great point. I had no idea. We could stagger it. That's my Gary voice. It's not even close. Enough. So as for the Frozen Frenzy yawn, I think is my takeaway. I didn't see anybody talking about it. I didn't see anybody tweeting about it. There's no indication that anyone was more likely to watch more games on this random ass Tuesday in October than any other weekday. So I imagine they'll keep doing it because ESPN, runs ads on it and they're trying to build it. And it is young enough that it takes time to build these things into something that people care about. But I don't think this is going to be one in its current form. Move it to a Saturday in March. Maybe you got something. The Blue Jays. Look, a couple of the things that I wanted to mention actually came from Game 3. And I just didn't have time to get it out here, right? We did the show yesterday with Mark Hebscher, and, I didn't want to put out 2 episodes in the same day. We can still touch on it here a little bit. And I did hear, and he framed it better than I did, which isn't unusual. But Brian Hayes on Overdrive on Tuesday created a list of 5 things that are going to be forgotten because the Blue Jays lost that 18-inning game. And I didn't have that, but I did have this feeling when I woke up Tuesday morning after way too little sleep that I was sort of bummed about. There was a few different things that happened that the Blue Jays did well in that game that were going to be forgotten because they lost. And that happens all the time. I talked about that at the end of last week when John Schneider threw Brendan Little in there in Game 5 against Seattle. He gave it up, and all of the good things that the Jays had done in that game were going to be forgotten, but that when they won 6 and 7, we'd never have to talk about the Little moment again, right? Once the pendulum swings the other way, we get to forget one way or another. And so I think that's happened now a little bit after the Jays win Game 4 to tie the series, but I was walking around before Game 4 going, Max Scherzer left with the lead. Who remembers that? It was in the 5th of 18 innings. We watched Max Scherzer pitch in the World Series for the Toronto Blue Jays, and he left with the lead. Was he old-fashioned, phenomenal prime of his career, Max Scherzer? No. Was he better than I thought he'd be? Yeah. That was awesome. The Vladdy play. Well, there was a couple of them where Vladdy goes first to home and he's just giving her down the third baseline and he sort of reaches over Will Smith's glove to tap the plate. Like, just a heads up play. Everything about that screamed ball player. That's one of Buck Martinez's favorite, right? This is a ball player. And we all know Vladdy loves the game. But a couple of years ago, he was the picture of the problem against the Twins, getting picked off at second, not coming to the mound for a meeting with the rest of the infield and the pitching staff. Not the pitching staff, the pitcher and the catcher. He's over at first chatting with whoever the hell it was on the Twins. You're just like, come on, man, I need you to engage here. I need you to lock in. He has been locked in for the entire playoffs. He has been fantastic. And for the first couple of games of this World Series, he hadn't had his big moment yet. But you could see him finding other ways, and this was one of them. First to home, running his ass off, and then managing to find a way to get around the tag and get the hand down on the plate. What a play. And he had another moment defensively. The ball's coming across the diamond to him at first. He realizes, I'm not going to get this guy. Takes the step forward off the bag to get to the ball sooner and guns it over to third. And I don't remember who he threw out in the moment. Might have been Kike Hernandez. Might not have been. I don't want to... Freeman. It was Freddie Freeman, I believe. But in the moment, to be like, okay, this guy is going to get to the bag before the ball gets to me. I'm stepping forward and in one motion, gunning it to third to get that guy. What a play. But no one was thinking about that after a loss in the 18th inning. Fucking Eric Lauer threw over 60 pitches for you. The guy's been forgotten for some reason. I really don't understand why they're not using him more. And look, I'm not saying he should still be in the rotation. I'm not even saying he should be a leverage guy for you. And maybe it's just because there hasn't been a ton of moments where you're way up or way down and you just need someone to come in and eat innings through these playoffs. But he was so good for you through the regular season. When you needed him, and they needed him a couple times out of the bullpen, and he was really good there. And for whatever reason, he's just not getting used in these playoffs. All of a sudden, you're desperate. In the 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th, whatever it was. Guy goes 3 or 4 innings for you, throws 60 pitches when you need him most, and he's fantastic. Well, when Little gives up the home run to Freeman in the 18th, it's out the window. You don't remember because you lost. All these things that had the Jays won in 17 or 16 or 15 or hell, 1 in 9. Maybe we're not talking about Lauer, but the rest of those moments, the rest of those performances that I just brought up are huge. They go down in Blue Jays lore. But when you lose, they're just, fuck. They kind of get lost to time. As I said, Brian Hayes did a nice job. He had a more complete list and a couple of different ones than I had, but it was a similar feeling. It was just like, it sucks we're not going to talk about this stuff anymore. Those were some huge moments, some huge performances from some noteworthy guys, and one not so noteworthy guy that are probably just going to be lost to the sands of time. I had less of an issue with Little going in the 18th. Like, what else are you going to do? You have burned through everyone else. He has properly been demoted. John Schneider is not going to him in big moments. But when you're there in the 17th inning, what are you going to do? There's nobody left. You did see Bieber down there. I don't know if they were ever serious about using him. I know Bieber was interviewed after he pitched in Game 4 and said that he and Scherzer had talked about it, and he went and told Schneider, if you need me. And he did go down there, but I don't know, again, was that... Like, I don't know what the point would be of trying to mess with the heads of the Dodgers at this point. Like, you're going to have to use somebody. Yeah, probably his Bieber, but maybe it wasn't going to be. But when you put in Little in the 17th, there was no one else left. He gave you a clean inning. You have to send him back out there for another. It's Freddie Freeman. Shit's going to go wrong at some point. The Jays had some opportunities through extra innings in that game, but it just always felt like after having taken out Barger, after having lost Springer to injury, after having taken out Bo, there was just no pop left in your, and Kirk was out as well. Every time you'd get somebody into scoring position or have a man on third, it'd be, well, here's Miles Straw, or here's Andres Jimenez, or something like that. You couldn't string together enough singles and ground outs and, sacrifice flies and whatnot to get it done. And I'm not even ripping on Jimenez or Straw. They've given you big at-bats both in the playoffs and throughout the regular season. But there was just too much of the lineup that was those, between Heineman and as well, like, the lineup was looking pretty Buffalo-ish by the end. It was Varsho and Vladdy. And that was about it. And they just couldn't finish it off. So I think a lot of people, including myself, before Game 4 were a little apprehensive. That was a long game. It was a dispiriting game. You lose it. It's demoralizing that way. Are you going to be able to find the energy to come back out in Game 4, having to face Shohei and stay alive? And man, I don't know where we got the idea that they wouldn't. They have done this all year. But I had the same concern as everybody else. Man, that sucks. That's a tough loss. I don't know how you come back from that quite that quickly. And they did. Vladdy has his moment now in the World Series. He's had a couple of big moments in the series leading up to this, in the previous series, I mean. His bat had been a little quiet early in the World Series. Well, he hits a monster of a home run off Shohei Ohtani in Dodger Stadium in Game 4 of the World Series. That's a moment, man. Jays gutted out. Shane Bieber was... Man, it's hard to describe what he's meant to the team, eh? Because they pick him up at the deadline and you're like, man, former Cy Young winner. And everyone's like, that was a long time ago. Don't get too excited. And then he has that first start against the Marlins. And I get it. The Marlins are essentially a Double-A team. But he looks so good. And your expectations and your excitement goes off the charts, through the roof, right? And it hasn't really been that way since. He's been fine, but not great. Well, he was closer to great than he was to fine in Game 4. You'd at least give him good. Struck out Shohei a few times. Gave him nothing to hit. He's painting around the corners. You know, there was some traffic on the bases. There seems to always be with him. But they gave him an extra day rest, knowing this is going to be your last start of the season and of the World Series before you become a free agent. I'm going to give you the extra day rest, and let's see what you can give us. And he gave you a pretty good outing. 5 reasonably clean innings, and gave you a chance to win. And how many times have we talked about that? This Jays offense sometimes takes a little while to warm up. Sometimes it's not until you're facing the bullpen. You need your starter to keep it close, and he did. Man, that was fun. Series all tied up at 2 again. Blue Jays bounce back, as resilient as they've been all year. Like I said, we were all worried about it. That might have been demoralizing. Nope, here they are. Right back at it, tie the series. It will go back to Toronto on Friday for Game 6. First of all, though, we have a Game 5 on, well, tonight, Wednesday night. Back to the top of the rotation for the Dodgers, Blake Snell. That is not going to be easy. It's Trey Savage for the Jays. I'm a little nervous about that, if I'm being honest. I'll put it on the record here. His last couple starts haven't been as exhilarating as what we had seen earlier. He didn't seem to be trusting his splitter as much. I don't know. Blake Snell will be looking for revenge. Can you get to him twice? One of the things we talked about here was, you know, this Dodgers rotation. Were you going to be able to get to it? Well, they've got 5 runs off Blake Snell, and then 4 off of Ohtani, and 4 off of Tyler Glasnow. It's not bad. And the rest of your runs have come against the bullpen, which was always expected. And you couldn't touch Yamamoto, which you're going to have to find a way because you are going to see him again, probably in Game 6. Which would tell me you should try very, very hard to win Game 5, which is not something they will need to be told. I think they try reasonably hard to win most games. But I don't want to be facing elimination, facing Yamamoto. But you've hit Glasnow, Ohtani, and Snell in the first 3, or the first time you saw each of them, pretty well. Can you keep it going? That's going to be the question in Game 5. Can you get to Blake Snell again? Can you at least get him to throw enough pitches that you knock him out of the game early? We'll see. What does Trey Savage have? We'll see. Who is starting Game 7 for the Blue Jays, if we get that far? There's a we'll see. I guess that would be Scherzer's turn, because Gosman's going to go in 6. And it's a Game 7, so it's all hands on deck. You may see some funky stuff. But as much as I just sung Max Scherzer's praises for what he did, I'm still not super comfortable with it. But it's the last game of the year. You'll see a lot of guys, I'm certain. But I hadn't really considered that until the late innings of Game 4 when the Blue Jays, it looked pretty clear they were going to win that game. They were up 6-1 or whatever it was. You go, okay, well, I guess it's just Savage for 5 and Gosman for 6, and then, oh God. Oh boy. So, what a story that would be. We're not there yet. Maybe we should just win in the next 2 and we won't have to worry about it. I did tweet out that it will make Halloween interesting, especially in some of the Western time zones. I'd like to see a shot from the International Space Station of Canada at 8 p.m. when the game begins, of front porch lights across the country being flipped off in unison, telling kids, hey, trick-or-treat time, hard finished. Do not knock on my door at this point. You just leave what's left of the bowl of candy outside. Don't knock, just take it and go. Honor system, only 1 apiece. Yeah, that'll work. All right, that's enough. This was supposed to be just some quick hitters, some stuff on my mind, and, well, there it is. Stuff off my mind. Game 5, later tonight. Trey Savage. We need one more big outing out of you, kid. We were talking about the last time he started that this was now one more start than he had made in the majors. When he starts today, it'll be one more start than he made in AAA. What a year. This guy has blown through the system. Don't forget, later on this week, Andy Petrillo will be here. Looking forward to that. We'll talk to her about her book. We'll talk some Olympics. Talk some hockey. We'll see what comes up. What's in the news at the time. But until then, my name is Matt Robinson. Thanks for listening. Catch you next time.
I thought it generally sucked. I didn't think it was a specific suck. I thought it was like an all-encompassing type of suck. So, we're going to try and rectify that. But for right now, I'm going to be pretty pissed about it.